Hello, everyone. It's Jessica and Eloise from JCN Clinic with you today, and we're talking about healthy meal prep ideas that nutritionists use. These are tips that we share with clients all the time, but more importantly for us, they're tools that we use week in, week out that work for us. And what will be interesting today is that what I use is going to be, we don't know, we haven't talked about this, so I think there'll be a bit of variation between what myself and my husband Damien use, because it's just the two of us. Well, 2.5 with the cat over there in the corner who gets to scavenge bits of cheese that Damien gives him. Whereas Elle is more family orientated. She's got 4 kids, isn't it?
4 kids, yeah.
Yeah, phew, I would have felt bad.
Ravenous eaters.
Yeah. So it's very different. I'm sure part of that will be volume, but also like different tastes and so forth. So maybe, do you want to get started if I throw the ball your way? Like, what are some of those meal prep ideas that just help you keep the family unit fed and healthy?
Yeah. I think I'll probably start with saying the reasons that I do it. Obviously, nutrition is a very important component to it. Making sure that they're getting adequate nutrients for their growth and development, but also for myself. We're busy. Everyone's got levels of, stress through their lives. So just making this as easy process as possible, I think, is why I do meal prep. I typically start my planning of the week a little bit on a Friday. I will always write a bit of a menu of what I'm looking at cooking for the week. And I typically break it down into 3-4 day windows. So, nothing spoils. I'm not, cooking something thinking it's going to last the week. But, and I'll do a click and collect, which has been just the easiest thing ever.
Yes.
Where we live up in coastal rural, which we don't really have a whole lot of convenience up here. Is probably similar with you. You don't have the option of going down and having a charcoal Charlie's or, a great takeout. You're very limited. So
charcoal Charlie's is.
In Sydney, it was like the gold, roast chicken shop that had all the beautiful salads, all the roast veg. We were talking about it the other day. It's definitely one of the things that I miss is that convenience of healthy food. So a click and collect. And then that's when I sort of break it down and start to plan my meal. It's always written on the fridge, and I think that helps the endless questions of what are we having. It's on the fridge. If you're not happy with it, tough, or you can tweak that around. But I got some advice from my mum a long time ago about, and this is when my kids were young. Sometimes I might even cook dinner at 7 o'clock in the morning if I've got a window where there's, it's a cold morning in winter and you're just, having a slow morning. I might actually cook our whole dinner or, the dinner the next night in the morning. But I am a bit of a fan of getting the tools that I'm using out ready to go. So say, for instance, if the morning I'm getting up and I'm making a dal, I'll have all the dal soaked the night before. I might have my pot out ready to go and the strainer. So I can just kind of get up and get going with the task. Do you sort of tend to do those little things as well?
You're blowing my mind right now because it's making me realize, honestly, how easy.
There's a lot.
I cannot. The level of planning and
I have to say though, there is
amazing.
6 of us.
No, exactly. That's why it's blowing my mind because there's elements that I relate to with how you're preparing for the week, but I can just see how you have to just do this next level of planning. I love that you're I was just thinking of my nieces and nephew and the extended family, and as you said, the amount of times we've been there and I've seen them going up and being, what's for dinner, but the idea of having that all written on the fridge and the way you're planning that all out, I just think it's more that we don't have to do that because we don't have to think beyond just us. We can think ahead of what do we want tomorrow, do we need to pull anything out of the freezer, what do we need to get for the week ahead as far as what do we need to have. But even because we live rural too, I would say we still have options with the local market or the little health food store or the little local supermarket where realistically, if we need something, we can pop out and get it a little easier. But again, we don't have to like think about, oh, I can't go and do this because of the kids need to be at sport or whatever that is. So you don't realize how much of a, I don't want to say it's a luxury. It's just like it's a different lifestyle.
Just different scenarios for like every person.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's like a health focus, whether you've started a protocol and, this is part of, what we've advised you to do, but it definitely forms a big part of a consultation. Like I'll say, what does your work-life balance look like?
Yeah.
What's your family setting? Who does the cooking? Ideally, I don't know anybody who would love to be in the kitchen for an hour a day cooking. I think that everyone's sort of so busy. I don't know anybody that loves to spend an hour in the kitchen.
I only know one person, but she's like an anomaly because that's just her absolute passion. And she's a mum with 2 kids, but she pretty much lives in the kitchen. Anomaly.
I don't mind the cooking. I just hate all the cleaning, and I find that's just the most tedious part of it. But I've now navigated that, so I've got lots of. Maybe I'll kind of go into those little things because I hate cleaning so much. Glass Tupperware, like you can prepare so many things in these, bake them, put the lid on, stick them in the fridge, stick them in the freezer. It's kind of like your best friend in the kitchen, I think. These are things that I have in all different sizes. They're all glass, of course. I'm not a fan of storing food in plastics unless it's dry content. But invest if you can start to just buy one piece a week if they're on sale. They're always on sale. Again, another little glass Tupperware. This is something that I just use to make pancakes. So I'll get all of that ready to go. I'll stick the lid on it and my kids can come in after school and make their own pancakes, or we can have them all ready to go and they can heat them up.
Wow, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So do you make that as a batter ready so it's in the fridge to go, and then they can just come in or do it in the afternoon, or that's like a breakfast option as well that's ready.
Totally. And I'll put some protein powder in it, fill it up. That the ones that are in the packet, as convenient as it is, it literally takes 3 minutes to put flour, your milk of choice, 2 eggs, a bit of cinnamon, a little bit of sweetness if you want to, and put a stick blender in it. So it's kind of like pick your 3 minutes. You put the water into the line and you shake it, all that. So, maybe that's a recipe I can share a little bit later on my page, on my Instagram page.
Yeah, I love that idea. I have clients that will pre-make pancakes, like they'll do a batch and then we'll freeze them ready to use, like actually cook them and then freeze them and pull them out and drop them in the toaster. I love the idea of the kids being able to come home and like just knowing that's there and hit that up.
Well, I think otherwise you're always tending to find, if you don't have, whether it's in the freezer, like what you're saying, your other client, it's such a good idea. You can put them in sandwich bags and just store them in there, 10 at a time. But if you sort of never have anything available, the only thing that anyone else is going to reach for is something that's packaged, So you're just sort of really supporting a healthy journey by having that little bit of prep. Could take you an hour, once a week, or, once every couple of days in my circumstance. But definitely it's worth its weight in gold, I think, doing some meal prepping.
So do you prep? So you said you'll meal prep every couple of days. So you'll plan on a Friday, but are you every sort of 2-3 days you're doing a prep again?
Yeah, look, to be honest, it always changes around. But if I'm feeling really motivated and like, yes, I want to spend 2 hours in the kitchen, I'll just do it all, and I'll make cookies and pancakes and granola and maybe 2 or 3 dinners. But on the busy weeks where, I've got full-time work and the kids with their sport, I might sort of do something on a Wednesday and a Sunday. And I don't want to be in here any more than I need to. But I think just having that idea of what those meals are going to be eaten is the first one. Like, what are you actually going to make that everyone's going to eat? And then, making sure that you've got access to that when it's feasible to use to start cooking. But yeah, I think there's nothing amazing about getting up and cooking meat first thing in the morning. But when you have it done and you get home at the end of the day and you're like, oh, I'm so glad that I did that this morning. But yeah, I've even tried a couple of like large sandwich bags where I kind of prep like raw meat. So like I'll fill them up with chopped vegetables and all the aromatics and everything, and then put those in the freezer, and then you can literally just dump it in a slow cooker, defrost it, put it in a slow cooker and leave it for the day. Like there's so many different options that you could use.
That's a good one. Well, let's I'll share a few of my sort of outline of the week as far as the prep as you just have, and then we'll get you to share some of those ones that you've got there tucked away, like specific meals.
Yes.
Glad want to hear a little bit more about that. But I guess, as far as my tools for the week, I say mine like it definitely is me, but my husband's involved as well. And part of that would be we're always pre-thinking like I break it down into like our proteins and then our veggies and then probably even our carbohydrates. So I kind of think about it as far as the main macros we need.
And the reason I nutritionist.
Yeah, right. But our protein for us, the reason is because we do live rural, is that we generally do a meat order, and that'll keep us going hopefully for the month. Give or take a few things that we'll pick up here and there if we have to. So I know that there's a lot of clients that will do a similar thing depending on where they're getting their meat from and butchers and so forth. But then other people will like pick it up weekly. So I guess that changes, but I'll make sure, well, I say Damien does it. He does our meat order, and we'll always have a variety of different options that are really our staples that we use. So it'll be a variety of different meats. And then there's also a seafood one that we do. So we go to somewhere different to get our seafood. So we'd have that frozen in portions for us and set aside. So that works really well. So if it's the night before, so we don't have to think, as I was saying earlier, like we're not planning the whole week as much. We'll probably be more like, okay, last night we had lamb. What do you like? Usually it's me at lunchtime saying, what do you feel like for dinner, in a panic? And then we're like, we'll pull out the meat and we're putting it up above the fireplace over there to defrost. Like that's more reality.
I think defrost. The key for this, well, I think that's the key though. It's being that bit organized and having the ingredients available. So like using a freezer really well, which I think after COVID really sort of opened everyone's eyes to, those old school traditions where families, had chest freezers with meats and everything. Which, I think we have one of those. I think it's a great idea. Always having some sort of protein in the freezer.
I think realistically that's the key too, as far as like a tool that I'd love people to take away is that it is, whether it's the way you're preparing or the way I'm preparing, it is actually having the ingredients there, like always thinking ahead. So it's rare that we're like, oh, there's nothing in the house. Like there's always something. So we'll have our proteins there, the carbohydrates I'll talk about them a bit later after we go through your meals, but we've got some staple carbohydrates, whether it be grains or pastas or root veg, that we'll always have there, so we can rotate those. And then the veggies for us, if that's more of a weekly shop going to the markets, we might pop into the supermarket if we need anything, but we try and get it from the market. And then we're lucky enough to have a garden, so we can pull from that depending on time of year. I mean, at the moment, we just have this running joke about all we eat is sorrel. We just get so sick of sorrel. It's our main green. It's like, sorrel again.
Yum.
Yeah. So, that's how I plan it that way. But definitely I would think about the week more as an overall as far as the variety of meals. So, I'm conscious of how many seafood meals we have in the week. Red meat, chicken, like a veggie meal in there. tempeh would be something that we'll have in the freezer as well that
Yes.
we can pull out. So
Yep.
yeah,
Same here.
it's definitely having those foods on hand and thinking
Yep.
ahead. Like today's a classic example when I show some of these ingredients. These jars are very empty. So it's getting to the market, filling things up before there's nothing left. And then you're like, oh, there's nothing
Yes.
to eat. And that's where if you're in the city or I mean, even out here, to be honest, like there's nothing to cook in the house, it's really hard to go and buy something. But if you
Yeah.
had to,
Yeah.
you would, and it would just be the worst pizza you've ever eaten, or
Yeah. Yeah.
some overpriced Indian or something like that. I don't know. Like it's not as appealing to run out of food in the house.
So like we live not far from Byron, but I went to the farm and I noticed that they had like this pie or this bulk bolognese mix. So like I might sort of grab stuff like that I'll always have in the freezer as like a last minute sort of option.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the goal is, like if you could obviously make it yourself, it's way more cost effective. You know the exact ingredients are in there. You just need to find that little bit of drive to sort of set aside an hour a week to, really carve out bulk cooking that stuff, and whether that is like a big, lentil bolognese or a bolognese or frittatas, that sort of thing. I think you've just got to pick it and just really overdo the quantity of it all if you want to sort of start to have your own repertoire of frozen meals for you in the freezer.
For sure. So do you want to share next just some of your I guess more common batch cooking meals or items that you would do?
Yeah. So this was very random afternoon, had no free time, and I was like, I have so many sweet potatoes. So I would roast maybe 2 or 3 trays of them. They could go in any side salad, a side dish. Even I used it in a thermos with some rice that I had. I put some leftover protein and I just mashed it up in the rest of the rice. So I've got this beautiful carbohydrate protein. And my little one and I took it to work in our thermos yesterday. So I feel like root vegetables are something that's so easy for people to meal prep. You could use a whole array of them, even potatoes, they're beautiful when they're cold as well. The other thing, I'll always have a variety of, like other grains, whether it's quinoa, buckwheat, rice. They can also be portioned and, put into the freezer. So the same thing, they can be defrosted that day. Even that morning, you could put it out on the windowsill and have a beautiful ingredient to put into your salad or, your lunch snack or something. The other sort of staple I feel like I'll always have mince, whether it's, from the butcher or I've just got this one from Woolies, but having that as a base, whether it can go on a pizza, we've been doing a lot of mince on pizzas. I think I shared that on Instagram. I'll make a load of meatballs up with beautiful spices and sort of bulk cook those as well, and they can go in the freezer. And yeah, I kind of really utilize my casserole pot for everything. I feel like it's such a versatile pot because you could just put it straight in the oven, stick it on 120. It literally does everything for you. And but yeah, my bulk cooking is like I always do a big silver beet frittata. I've shared that quite a lot on my page. Big lasagnas go really well in my house. Meatballs. I'll always have rice on hand to do, like it could be like a nasi goreng or a chicken. Trying to think, a big Mexican chicken that I do put in the slow cooker. And that's another great way to sort of hide a lot of the veg for the kids, because the slow cooker just cooks everything down into this nice sort of liquid that, sweet potatoes hidden really well, and it's just an added boost for them. But yeah, I use the slow cooker a lot for that, the bulk cooking of the protein, and then all your sides, that you want to add to them, if that makes sense.
Oh, it so does. No, it's really interesting. Do you think that if you had to put a rough percentage on it, so in the week, would you say 50% of what you're using is being freshly cooked that day or in the 24-hour period versus 50% you're pulling out of ready to go batch cook frozen stuff, or is it like 70-30? I'm just curious, like how much, because you're always thinking about cooking extra, freezing, having like.
Yeah. Say this current week, it's probably 70-30. Like I am cooking a little bit more fresh, but that's probably because like at this time of year, I always have my steamer sitting on the stove. Like it looks daggy, I know, but I don't care. I love my steamed broccoli and my beans. Like that's something that I'll always sort of offer for our family. But then, like I might just have to do a quick bit of the protein cooking or something. But yeah, I do. Yeah, this week I'm probably a lot fresher, but generally I would have a proportion of it already from the freezer pre-cooked. That's when you're on fire and you're like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's also just, I ask because it kind of highlights for people like how helpful it is to have it there, like to do
So helpful.
batch cooking of the things that you've just said that work for you, like to do that, cook extra and have it. Like that's 50 times up to 50% of the food in the week that you don't even really have to think about. It's just there. Like that's so helpful for when you're trying to like ensure the family's eating well.
Yeah. Well, then it is cost effective as well. You've got a lot of meal services like HelloFresh, but whether everyone's sort of, on their budget and trying to do their thing, but basically if you just sort of mirrored your own menu that worked for you, you could do it much cheaper. And, the ingredients, you can set it exactly how you need to be. You can take out what, you don't want. But definitely large containers work really well. And you just have to be conscious and go, okay, well, instead of just making 500 grams, get a kilo, get 2 kilos of mix and really kind of, quadruple it. So you could even cook for the month by doing it that way when there's only kind of 2 of you, I think.
Absolutely.
But yeah, things can also be prepped ahead. So like I do that apple crumble bake that my kids all love and my husband. And I'll kind of just get it all ready to go the night before quickly. And then just whenever it's ready to be cooked, I can stick it in the oven and have it. It doesn't necessarily have to be cooked that day. Like you could be prepping it and not putting it in the oven until the next afternoon for a nice hot afternoon tea kind of thing. Dessert.
Yeah, I want it now.
When it's cold, your body just craves, like warm, nourishing foods. And there is nothing better. You come back from a cold sport training. Well, I think anyway. And you come back to a hot apple crumble that's healthy for you, and you're like, yes.
It's like I was meant to hear that box behind me is filled with apples and citrus from my family when they were here, and the apples are getting really, I've got to use them. I need to stew them down. And I was just thinking before, we need to make an apple crumble.
Well, that's exactly how that recipe came about. It's kind of like you don't like wasting, and it's, you can get those bags of fruit really cheaply as well, the Odd Bunch or whatever it is. And, they're baked with some beautiful cinnamon. Oh, so good. Pears.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like my versions of some staples are very similar. Surprise, surprise. Like, I guess this is the thing. Like, there's no, when it comes to like foundational nutrition, and this is, I guess, a big part of what we're about at JCN, like, there's no major fads. Like, foundational nutrition really is what it is. So, like you, I'm preparing similar types of meals. It's just probably about portions at the end of the day, and I have a little bit more probably flexibility too as far as maybe putting something together or adding a bit more on the dinner or the lunch or whatever it is. But I know I have got here just some of my staples, which are again very empty, that need to be filled. But I pulled up buckwheat because for me it's such a versatile grain. I'll cook this up as a grain and have it so that there's extra in the fridge, or as you were talking about, freezing it. The other thing I'll do is I'll put it in the blender and just blend it to a flour and use it in baking or to make up some quick crepes. But for me, like, having buckwheat in the house is just such an essential, and it cooks pretty quick. Like, it's, I don't know,
It does cook.
I find I don't know about you, but I feel like within 10 minutes, like it's kind of done. Like once the water starts to bubble away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a every time I think or I cook buckwheat, I'm like, it's just so good for you. You know, like you
yeah.
look at it and you're like, yeah, I love buckwheat.
And I'll pull it.
It's a
So I'll
great
use it for
starting component.
dinners and put
Yeah,
it with like veggies. And in summer, it'll become a quick kind of green salad, or I can put
yeah,
roast veggies in it at the moment for a winter salad. But I'll also,
yeah.
if I've got the grain in the fridge, use it to make a porridge. So I just find
A
it's like
porridge, yeah,
so versatile.
yeah.
The other one, like again, very empty, but it's brown rice. Like
Brown rice,
I don't know, like I just am on a rice bender at the moment, like even
yeah,
white rice as well. But
yeah.
yeah, I can't have enough of this pre-cooked
White
and in the
rice,
fridge. Yeah.
basmati.
And they freeze well. Like I think
They
that's
do
important.
freeze
As
well.
often I'm sure you get that from clients too. Like they're unsure if you can freeze these things. Like they freeze super, super well.
Yeah,
Um,
yep,
and pasta, like I'll always have pasta. I kind of rotate variations. I think this is like a rice amaranthy something from our health food store, but
yeah,
I'll cook up
yeah,
extra of that as well. So it's the kind of, I feel like the carbs are a big part for me that I think about batch cooking and having in the
yeah.
fridge. And likewise, I'll always have root veggies. Like I'm a sweet
Root
potato
veg.
fan like you. So the purple's my favorite.
Oh, I
Um,
love the purple.
I do like orange, but this one wins my heart.
Yeah,
Potatoes. We eat so much potatoes, so always have extra
yes.
cooked and do like a big tray bake. So we'll have
I
extra.
feel like
So
some of these might be, sorry, clients are
you're
like,
right.
oh, you guys eat those things. Absolutely. And it comes down to this foundational nutrition that, you know, once you sort of have these foundations in place, you know, then you could, you know, you need to tweak things here or there, but, you know, your basic
Mm,
macros are being met every day. And I think that's always the
yeah.
first starting point that we, you know, begin our journey together with. Do you agree?
Yeah, so agree. Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting is like it's same, but very small differences. So
Same, yeah. And it's still
yeah, yeah,
simple. It is no fads. And I think we've been very caught up with these fad diets. And, you know, people
mm,
might even be shocked to go, oh, wow, you eat mince. Or, yeah, you know,
yeah,
like
yeah. True,
there's a
true.
place for
Yeah,
all foods in the world. You know, it's
yeah.
just,
That's it.
you just got to keep it back to basics, really.
Mm-hmm. So I'm the same as you with the proteins too. Like we, as I said, there's a variety, but we'll cook up at night and then ideally I'll try and cook extra. So it doesn't always happen. So I might have to use for lunches or something, like I'll fall back on eggs or some
Yes.
like salmon or tuna or something like that.
Yep.
But I've even got, I just pulled out myself like likewise, a pink color, but uh, one of the glass containers. But this
Yes.
is just
What's in
really
there?
classic example of batch cooked tempeh. So last night we were
Yum.
doing wraps and we cooked up these really nice chicken sausages. So there's leftovers of those.
Yeah.
But there's a
Yep.
whole, because the tray was going in, I did just a whole lot of extra tempeh. So
Yep.
I know that I've got protein. There's some leftover. Great. Actually, maybe I ate them all. There was some leftover white rice. Maybe I ate it
Yes.
all. So there'll always be something like that. Then just one other thing that I do that probably isn't for everyone is I'll usually have a pre-mixed sort of sauce or condiment. So I do love like easy, just like lemon and tahini and
Yep.
stuff you can just put straight
That's a
on.
great tip.
That's a leftover, like a batch made tahini sauce with some like
Yum.
smoked paprika and onion powder and stuff through it.
Yep.
But the one that we make the most every week without fail is homemade mayo, which is on the website.
Yes.
It's a whole egg mayo, and we do up a big
Yum.
pot of it. And honestly, it brings together pretty much every meal. Like yesterday is a
Yes.
classic example for lunch. It was like leftover carbs, leftover protein, some salady stuff, and then I just put soy sauce and homemade mayo on top, and it's
Yes.
just so
Oh,
yummy. And
yum.
I think that with clients or just even with people watching, like that's something too
Yeah.
that when you're putting together just basic meals and they're just yummy whole food ingredients, it's then about how do you add those extra bangs of flavor and mix it up. So
Yes.
one day it's got those sorts of flavors I just mentioned, or maybe there's like a homemade pesto, or just
Yes.
ways that you can add those flavor explosions. So I that's probably a little additional thing I wouldn't expect the average person to do. But I mean, we've got chickens, we've got the eggs, we've kind of got everything here. And homemade mayo is like literally takes a minute once you know how to do it. It's so quick.
And is next level good.
Oh my God, it's so good. We use olive oil too. Like I love that grassy flavour in there.
Oh, we use so much olive oil. I think you're right. I forgot about the sauces, you know, like you've got your staples, but you're right. You could have them sitting there in the fridge ready to go. Like one that we use a lot of is, there's a couple, olive oil, maple and Dijon and lemon. That's always like my standard sort of going on a green salad. But the other day, like a beautiful Caesar dressing that I made out of yogurt, garlic. What else did I put in there? Again, some lemon, salt and pepper, Worcestershire, tiny bit of Worcestershire. And there's that easy, simple Caesar dressing to go over. Just a chicken Caesar salad with eggs and chicken and croutons.
So I think really the main takeaways for people, like there's some really interesting meal or components of meals that we've shared. So I know that will be helpful for people, but I think the overarching concept that I'm getting from this is that both of us with very different lifestyles, we're conscious of it's the planning, it's the pre-thinking of what you need, but even more so it's the having the food in the house. And that's that concept. I feel like they come together. It's thinking what do I enjoy, or what do we enjoy as a family? What do we need to have in the house? And to actually pre-think it and have it there and spend that little bit of time, whether it's as I do or as you do, Elle, that is more planning because it's a whole family, so that it's there. Like that really seems to be the key concept, because then once it's there, you can kind of push it and pull it in different ways. But as far as the time spent meal prepping, what I'm picking up too is that, you don't want to spend your whole day in the kitchen.
No.
I'm, depending on what I'm doing too, for sure, I don't feel like I've got that much time to spend in there all the time. So I'm putting a lot of my, as you are, meal prep into, well, we're making dinner or I'm making whatever this is, let's make extra and freeze it. So it's not like you have to spend your whole Sunday meal prepping. I mean, you can do that if you want, if you love it, but it's like, I'm already making this, let's cook extra and just think about what I need or how that can help future me, future family me.
Future family, You know, because if you don't have a plan, you go to the shops or the market and you kind of just buy everything. And most of it will get thrown out because you don't know how to put it together. So that little bit of a plan of the meal, like we've got a fridge that you can write on. I'll just write on it and have a look at what's in my freezer and kind of go from there. It doesn't have to be as set as that, but at least that idea is I'm buying exactly what we need, and I'll always have extra in the freezer if the meals change or people come over. But just that little bit of plan.
So true. That just reminded me before we finish, in a similar way, Damien and I will use, actually we haven't been using it as much lately, but like a shared app. So there's there's heaps of them, but it's like a shopping app. So like you can have a list on your phone, but it's shared, so that if you're in the shops or you're out or whatever, you know exactly what you need. And you're not ending up with double ups, and it's really helpful. So if he goes to the shop or I go to the shops, lately we've been doing text messages, like he'll have a list and I've got a list and we'll just share them just to make sure nothing's missed or like buying stuff that you don't need. Although when you go to the shops and you're hungry, that always happens.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great idea. I should look into that. Ours is just written on there, and when the kids finish something, I say, write it on there. Otherwise, I won't know to buy it. Stick it on the list.
Exactly. Well, this has been good.
For everybody. I hope they've enjoyed the differences of Jess and I of how we approach meal planning. But again, it just comes down to the foundations of keep it simple with your macros and a little bit of a plan. I think will set you up advantageously for the week or the month.
Absolutely. And if anyone has any questions, leave them in the comments below, or if there's any particular maybe meals or recipes that we've referenced that you want more information on, again, just leave it in the comments and we'll help you out. But otherwise, thanks for watching, everyone.